Senator Shaheen has been committed to improving the lives of New Hampshire's middle class for decades. Known for her hard work, her common sense leadership, and dedication to supporting working families, she has served in the United States Senate since 2009 and is a member of the Senate's Committee on Armed Services, Foreign Relations, Appropriations, and Small Business Entrepreneurship. She has been a champion for families facing hardship during the recession, and she has led New Hampshire's efforts to pass a critical extension of unemployment benefits to help out-of-work families navigate the federal bureaucracy and include thousands of families, to protect thousands of families who are facing foreclosure in this country. Between her time as governor and election to the U.S. Senate, she serves as the director of Harvard University Institute of Politics, the Kennedy School, and of Government. She and her husband Bill live in Madbury with they have 3 daughters, Stephanie, Stacy, and Molly, and 7 grandchildren, I might add. It's my honor and my pleasure to introduce our U.S. Senator, Senator Jeanne Shaheen.
Most of you could recite that introduction. I've been here enough, so I appreciate that. I really would have liked to have Gail do the blessing, though, because heaven knows, Gail, we could all use your blessing. Mark reminded me that we stand between you and breakfast, so I should try and be brief. But it really is wonderful to be here with all of you to celebrate the enormous contribution that working men and women and organized labor have made to build a strong New Hampshire and a strong America. And I'm pleased to be here with all of the state senators who do such a good job, and the executive counselors, and the commissioners, Kapatis and Craig. And I'm not going to get into all of the labor leaders who are here because I will start leaving people out. But it really is an honor to be with all of you and to recognize that it is the hard work of those like you in this room that have built this country. And we need to do more to celebrate that every day, not just Labor Day. You are the people who keep America working. Without you, our children would not have good teachers, our mail would not be delivered, our streets and homes would not be protected, public works projects would not be built, and without organized labor, working men and women would not have decent wages and decent benefits, and we need to make sure those continue for everybody. You know, I know that our economy is improving, but it's not back to where it should be. I know, and I hear everywhere I go in New Hampshire, that people are frustrated, that people are still struggling, that we have too many people who are working hard, working at 2 and 3 jobs to keep their families together because they can't make a living wage that covers their costs. We know that college is too expensive for too many families. And even though New Hampshire is doing better than most of the rest of the country, unemployment here is still too high, and people are not back to where they were before the recession. We need to do more in Washington. There is no doubt about that. People are frustrated because we can't work together down there, and we know that the country is still facing so many challenges. You know, I've been coming to this breakfast long enough to remember when there were Republicans at this breakfast, because they understood that it was important to support working men and women. But I'll tell you, there is one thing that we have taken a stand on in Washington, and it's the one thing that almost changed the rules of the Senate. As you all know, for months and months, the GOP blocked President Obama's nominees to the National Labor Relations Board. Well, we took a stand about a month ago, the Democratic majority in the Senate, and we said, either you support these nominees or we are going to change the filibuster rule. Now, I think we should still change the filibuster rule.
Hear, hear.
But as a result of that stand, for the first time in over a decade, we have a full 5 members on the NLRB. So, finally, after a decade, there is a fair board to protect your right to organize. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the things that I've been working on for the last 5 years, but I do think there are a couple of things that are worth mentioning. One is that we finally have the Berlin prison up and operating, and I don't know if we've got anybody here from the North Country today. It's a long way on a rainy day to come down, but for 2 years, that prison that we spent $270 million to build sat vacant because we couldn't get the Republicans in the House to go along with passing operating funds. We were spending $4 million to keep it heated and to keep it protected, but we weren't willing to operate it. Well, finally, we've got the operating funds. We've got $40 million that's boosting the North Country economy. We've got 250 jobs there now, and 130 of those are union jobs. In the North Country, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the North Country because I wanted to recognize Peter Roth, who is being honored this morning, and he's making a face because, you know, too often we don't honor the people who do the good work behind the scenes. And I remember when I was sitting where Maggie is now, the day after the mills closed in Berlin, and we were trying to figure out how to protect the workers up there, how to protect the jobs, how to protect the people in the communities who were going to be affected. And it was Peter who led the charge at the Attorney General's office to make sure we could do that. So he has been there behind the scenes for years, and he deserves all of our thanks for the great work that he has done. Thank you. And you know, for years, President Bush blocked new Davis-Bacon wage surveys. And then in 2011, under President Obama, we were able to increase highway wages in New Hampshire for the first time in 6 years. Well, some people found out about that. They didn't like it. They wanted to see it reversed. Working with Governor Hassan, we were able to stop that effort in its tracks and make sure that federal highway work continues to pay a decent wage in New Hampshire. Now, you all know, even though it's only 2013, 2014 is coming around very fast. And we need to re-elect Governor Hassan. We need to re-elect Congresswoman Annie Kester. We need to re-elect Congresswoman Carol J. Porter. All of the great people who are here. And of course, I need your help to re-elect me. You know, in 2008, when I got elected, it was the first time since 1975 that the state of New Hampshire had sent a Democrat to the United States Senate. And it matters if Democrats hold the majority in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House. Democrats know we need to increase the minimum wage. The GOP wants to eliminate the minimum wage. We saw this in New Hampshire. Democrats believe that workers should have the right to organize, and the GOP wants to end collective bargaining. They want to pass the so-called right-to-work laws. In fact, Rand Paul, all of you know Tea Partier Rand Paul, yes, thank you. He just introduced a right-to-work bill in the United States Senate. Well, we'll defeat them in the Senate just like we defeated them in New Hampshire. But we need to keep our Democratic majority in the Senate in order to do that. And let me tell you personally, I understand why we need to defeat right-to-work laws. You know, when I was a college student, I worked in a shoe factory. My father was in management there, and so I was able to get a job on the floor. And I remember they came to me and they said, "You need to join the union." And I went home to my father and I said, "You know, why do I have to join the union? I'm only going to be here for the summer. I'm probably not going to make a career here at the shoe factory." And he said, "You need to do that because that's the way the system works. That's what's fair. Because everybody who benefits from the negotiations that the union does should have to pay those wages to help make that happen." I learned at a young age how important that is. As Democrats, we believe that all Americans should have access to good, affordable health care. And I know that there are concerns about what the Obamacare law will do to the Taft-Hartley plans, and I think we've got to address that. But the answer is not to repeal Obamacare. That's what the GOP wants to do. In fact, they've held 40 votes now to try and repeal the health care law. And as Governor Hassan said, here in New Hampshire, they are keeping 58,000 people from getting the health care coverage they need because they have refused to accept those Medicaid dollars. That is unacceptable. And while Democrats are standing up for our shared values, Republicans are at war with themselves over the Tea Party's dominance of their party. In the Senate, 4 Tea Partiers have been blocking our ability to pass a budget for this country. They want to shut the government down. They prefer that we lurch from one manufactured prices to the other instead of giving the economy the certainty it needs to create good jobs. It's no wonder that Senator John McCain went to the floor of the Senate and called them wacko birds. That's the John McCain I know and love, you know. He's speaking up as an independent. Clearly, we have a lot to do in Washington. We've got to protect Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. We've got to make sure that we can help provide opportunity for all of the middle-class Americans who are still struggling in this economy. But before I close, I want to address an issue that has been in the news and I know is on some of your minds because several of you have stopped to ask me about it, and that is the situation in Syria. I'm headed back to Washington tomorrow because the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the Armed Services Committee, on which I sit, will begin a series of classified briefings and hearings to discuss how to respond to Syria's use of chemical weapons. Now, I believe that the use of chemical weapons, like any weapons of mass destruction, is unacceptable. It's a violation of international norms, and that there should be some accountability for using those weapons. We're going to have a debate in Congress. I think it's important that we're going to have a debate. And as I make my decision in the coming days, I'm going to listen carefully to that debate, to the evidence that's presented. And I'm going to recognize that any military action, even limited strategic military action that's being talked about in this situation, is action that falls most heavily on our men and women who serve and the men and women who help make this country run. So I will consider any decision very carefully and very thoughtfully. I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for all of the support that you have given me over the years. You have stood with me on so many occasions, and please know that I will continue to stand with you. Today is your day. Let's celebrate it.